Now I'll switch to English because it was asked to have this presentation delivered in English. It also fits very well to the topic of AI, which is indeed a very international topic. And he is an international, truly creative, already preparing his presentation, light and media artist, founder and owner at White Void, Kinetic Light and Dark Matter. And he and his team, they are very well known for spectacular light and space installations worldwide. For example, showcasing at the Burning Man Festival, also at the Berlin Philharmonic, and at various other international events. So good to have him with us. Please give your applause for Christopher Bauder.
Thanks. Are there any English speakers in the room, actually? Anyone speaking English? Okay, then we do it in English.
Yeah, you stick to the plan. What can we, just to have like a brief teaser, what can we expect from your presentation? How are you going to inspire?
I mean, I'm on the other side of Marcel. Marcel is very much an organization and how technology and also KI, AI can help on that side. I'm on the creative side of things. So I'm interested in, or I always was interested in, how software can help me to create and how AI can support me to create. Or maybe later how I can support AI to create, I don't know. So yeah, I will talk a little bit about my inspiration, which always was fueled by computer and software. You will see it with the very first things I'm showing. I started in a time when software in creation was already available. So my whole career, I use software, I develop software, and I'm very positive about AI. So yeah, in creation.
Yeah, that's what I realized. So you are definitely one of the positive guys when it comes to all this technology and always aiming at amazing people and telling stories. And I think that's what we're also going to expect now. Thank you so much for being with us, and let's get it started.
Thank you. Yeah, I found it very interesting, Marcel's last remark when he said he was scared of the robots. I just had an experience for the first time that I saw a squad of robots perform. We're working on a show in Macau in one of the theaters there with the Chinese director Zhang Yimou. And one section of the performance is about 20 robots performing. So they do a little very silly dance where they wave flags and things, and it looks kind of silly, but the robots came in for the rehearsal to walk on the stage by themselves. And when I was sitting there and I saw the robots walk in, and they look very much like the Terminator after his flesh is burned off. So they are black, skinny, bony things. They are very loud in walking, so it's very much like a soldier. And they came walking into stage themselves from the back, positioned themselves, and then they started a very silly dance. But I thought, now I think they are very silly, but this is the moment in Terminator, you know, when you realize that these things might become something else and become more aware of themselves and more powerful. So they still were kind of silly, but also kind of very scary at the same time. So I'm also a little bit scared of robots, honestly. I'm not scared of AI. I will show you why. So I need my glasses already, unfortunately. So I will talk a little bit about software, mainly software, and AI, as we all know, is also just software and is created by humans. It's not coming from outer space or anything, but it's created by us, and it's our tool, and we are developing and we are pushing it ahead. So software and AI is the same thing, and I'm always working with software in my creations, and I will show you a little bit where I come from. So I always worked with the computer. I always designed with the computer. Even as a kid, there was the first versions of CorelDRAW and all these kind of things already, so I was used to grow up with the computer. I'm not that old, so this is not my first computer, but this is what I wasn't satisfied with in the computer. I didn't like the screen, I didn't like the keyboard, I still cannot type with 10 fingers, so it's really a strange technology for me to use. It's very unnatural, it's very unhuman. Also the mouse, I get cramps and stuff, so it's not a good input device. So I was thinking how I can get all these nice, I show you what actually my setup looked like in the beginning. That's me, it says here 2000. That's my setup, one of the first projectors where you had to adjust all the colors with a lot of screws to kind of match them on the wall. My first computers and my screens and everything. That's kind of my desktop. At that time, none of the things on this desktop matter anymore. So my main tool at that time was Macrovision Director. Like it's a CD authoring software that was abused to kind of create interactive installations and things like that. Flash and like all the things of the past don't exist anymore, and no one knows how to use. Oh, there's a PDF, so that we still have. So I wasn't satisfied with this kind of setup, and but I liked really very much all the functionality in the 3D software. So I can create a shape like, let's say, a ball, and I can modulate it into a blob, and the blob, if I'm very good, I shape it into a bird, and I make it fly and flap its wings, and I can color it, and so I can create dynamic changing shapes in 3D. And I was really wondering, how can I get this kind of functionality out of that screen, and how can I bring it into 3D space? And the main element at that time of digital creation was the pixel. Everybody was talking about the pixel. How many pixels does your screen have, and your phone, and all these things where you could see the pixels still. Today, you don't see them anymore, maybe on the LED screens. And so my basic idea was, how can I use this functionality of a pixel as the smallest unit of a picture or of an element and transfer that into real physical 3D space? And my idea was something like this. I was inspired by functionality in 3D software called displacement, like a displacement technology. So where you use a bitmap picture, you put it onto a 3D plane, and then the 3D plane deforms like a terrain based on the brightness of the picture. So a bright spot would be a high element of the terrain, and a dark element in the picture would be a low point on the terrain. And that I would split that into individual small pixels, like balls, I was thinking, like one pixel, one ball in space. I distribute them in space, and I would be able to kind of manipulate them. Of course, today everybody would say drones, and I would have done that too, but this didn't exist at that time. So my idea was balloons. So I had these balloons. I couldn't afford to make too many of them. Here you can see my setup. I had these little tiny motors here on the floor that are all built by hand. I wanted to build 100, so 10 by 10, but yeah, I gave up at 8 by 8, 64, which is also a nice digital number. And that was my solution to having three-dimensional pixels in physical space that I can manipulate with computer software. So from the very beginning, I developed my own control software. I always had a 3D visualization already in the software, so this was very early, 2004, 2005, something like that, where that wasn't that popular. And then I also thought it's a little bit too like static, too much like a sculpture. I didn't like that, you can make a nice shape, but what does it mean? Like what's the content? What can I display? What can I show? And so I asked this guy here. This is Robert Henke. For those who are into music, you might know Ableton Live, the music software. So this is Robert Henke, one of the founders of Ableton Live, and he's also a very good musician and composer, and of course, based on his creations based on Ableton Live. And yeah, we teamed up and we created a show using those individual 3D pixel balloon balls and combination with music. And we realized that it's possible to create very meaningful, or let's say emotional performances with this by the combination of motion, light, and sound, which are very basic and archaic triggers to us as a human. So if you see something moving in the side of your eye, you have to look and you get fixated on it. So motion, light, and sound are very simple triggers, but they can also create very profound emotion. Why does music change our mood, or certain colors change our how we feel? and things like that. And so there's a very simple, but if you drill in deeper, also very complex thinking behind those things. So this was my first attempt to use software and use functionalities out of the software to display into 3D physical space. And I called this show Atom, and I toured it with Robert around the world. So this is an interesting picture here. It was a show that we did at the Centre Pompidou in Paris. And this was after the show, so we always tell the people, don't take pictures during the show, do it afterwards. We will make a nice shape for you, and then you can take your pictures. And then when we did that, a woman came across the room. She was like maybe 70, 75 years old, and she was really, really agitated and seemed, to me first, I thought she's angry or something. It was too loud for her or she didn't like it. But then she came to us and said, like, it was unbelievable when the aliens landed in that one scene, and then they explore the planet and they make friends with the humans and then they leave again. And we're like, wow, okay. That was her kind of what she took away from 64 balloons moving with music and lights. And we actually had a kind of story telling in our little show that included the aliens landing and exploring the planet. And so we had the spaceship scene, and then it diffuses into individual elements and so on. So we had this story actually made for ourselves, but we didn't think that anybody would get it from the show itself. So that gave us a hint that it's possible to trigger very basic memories in people. So this might look like something to someone. So if we have basic enough triggers, basic enough pictures, we can trigger the additional memory in the people's minds. So I have one show, for example, I use a lot of moving lights and a mirror to reflect them, and people think it looks like the sun because it's yellow and it has beams and they all come from one point, so it's similar to the sun, so you think sun. And people started to feel the warmth, so they were following the beams and so on. So it was very interesting how with very simple technological functions you can create memories and trigger memories. So from this first project I did in 2004, I just started to develop this as a product. Some of you might know it. It's my company or brand called Kinetic Lights. And this is our kind of project portfolio of different winch systems. And down here you see all the different elements of lights that we created. So of course, first it was pixels and the balls. So if you have one motor moving something, you're like, oh, I could use two motors to move something together. And so we did different elements to hang. So here's the connected bar. Then we thought, it could also be 3 points. And then, rings could be nice. And then we went into higher resolution. So this was already a low resolution video display based on OLED technology. We did some interior stuff, lamps. Yes, you can also move shirts or other things. And also we have a large system to allow for moving lights and things, as you can see here. And you can basically hang anything on it you want, LED screen, TV screen, lasers, anything up to 50 kilos. So this is, here you can see a demo with the moving lights. We have stabilizers so they don't start to shake when we move the moving light and so on. Yeah, this just to show you a little bit my background, how I came from. Everything I do is inspired by software, and as a heavy use of software, of course, we have our own control software environment for this. And we're using software in every step of the creation. I want to show you one example how I create and how I use software and generative technology and all kinds of things up to AI tools now in my creation process. So this is a project I presented this year in March in Berlin at Kraftwerk. It's called Vector. And this is a piece where I not only create the visual side, but I also compose my own music. And I will talk a little bit more about how I do that, because I have no clue about creating music, because I'm not classically trained. I cannot play a keyboard. I don't know too much about scales. But tools, software, and also ultimately AI is helping me to overcome these shortcomings, because in my mind, I can create music. I just don't have the tools and the ability to let it out through manual kind of things that you have to learn. So the only part in my whole creation process that is analog is actually when I storyboard. So this is my storyboard. Everything handwritten, scribbles, little pictures, photographs, and I'm sketching. Oh no, where's another one? No, it's just that one. So here, this is the only moment that I'm analog, that I'm not using a computer or software in my creation process. So I will start a little bit from the beginning. Let me just open this little presentation here. So the show is called Vector, Memories in Light and Sound, because it's heavily based on my own memories from a childhood. I grew up on the countryside at the Lake of Constance. Till today, I'm living in Berlin, I'm traveling the world, and different environments in nature, in cityscape, in international things, and also memories have inspired me over the course of my life. And I try to integrate them, again, with super abstract means. So what I have in this show, you can see here the very first sketches that we do to integrate it in the space. So the show is basically 10 laser pods, I call them, each on a winch, and each of these laser pods has 5 lasers, so basically pointing in all directions and down. And I can move them up and down, and of course I can make full use of the capabilities and the range of each of those RGB lasers. And I can synchronize all of that in 3D space. So that was my basic idea. So here you can see some very first simple arrangements in the actual Kraftwerk space. Some planning, of course, also done in software, how to lay it out, how to do the spacing, and how to work with the space. For me, it's a very important thing is to not create an art piece and then try to figure out where to put it, or have a dark, empty space like we have it here. But I'm working with the character of physical spaces, like the Kraftwerk is the old power plant, and it has its own character, and it adds to the experience of the show. Yeah, then we do some simple visualizations, some renderings, and also we started to use a little bit of AI here, sometimes to extend pictures or to make variations, or to come up with simple things that inspire us to what we could do in the show. Here you see other visualization. And then, of course, there's engineering. Everything we do is done in CAD software, and we also have additional tools helping us now that are generative, and they also solve problems in engineering that before you needed to have a very clever engineer to solve it, and today you have little helper tools and softwares to help these calculations and this engineering. So everything you see in our shows, we engineer, we build, we produce. Unfortunately, in Berlin, which makes it very expensive, but I think the quality is also quite good. And then to the music part. I mean, this is a classical setup in the studio. So this is the studio of my producer. He helps me to get the things out of my head and into the software and into the programming environments. And we have little analog tools and so on. But the main tool that we are using, because I cannot write melodies and I have to create the melody for some parts of my performance, and I'm very bad with the notes and the scale. And if I have a certain scale, which notes am I allowed to play in that scale? So I use all kinds of helper tools that eliminate. If I selected a scale, it eliminates all the other notes in the scale that I'm not allowed to use. So I'm not using a keyboard. I use a pad interface. And then we also, I don't know if it's on one of the pictures. I use a couple of generative analog machines. It's basically like a little software generator inside where I can choose the variables. And we also use AI tools where I can do the same. I choose variables until a melody arises that sounds good to my ear, not knowing which scale I'm in or how I created it and the background of music. And I'm not educated in that, but I can hear what sounds well. And this is one big argument where I think AI will help people like myself a lot that have ideas, but not the skills to put them out. So people like myself, they don't use the tools themselves, but they have the ideas in their mind, and AI helps them, and software and generative tools help them to get those ideas out without learning very complex tools. So you just have a simple prompt, or you have a very simple tool where you just twiddle with some knobs, and in the background, a software is generating all the additional knowledge that you don't have and creates something that you can listen to, and while you adjust the variables, it's changing the output in the same time without me knowing what is happening in the logic behind that. So that allowed me to create a 40-minute musical piece, and to make it even more complicated, I decided to spatialize the sound. I used L-Acoustics ELISA system, and yeah, we built that system into the studio with 30 speakers and subs, and then later scaled that up to the size of the whole Kraftwerk space. So again, I needed to spatialize music, not knowing too much about how to spatialize and what tools to use. And it's a very interesting experience, because I can really well hear and understand what happens in space, but I don't know the logic about how I should do it and position it in space. And it also gives the possibilities of, if you don't know too many things about the background and the practicality of how to create, for example, music, you come up with new ideas. Like my producer was all the time like, okay, that's very unusual, but okay, let's try. And we came to very unusual results that you might not try out or allow yourself to try if you have too much knowledge about it. So also these tools, and AI is one of those tools, help people like myself to try unusual ideas that you might not allow yourself or might be restricted by using traditional technology. Then, of course, we do tests. We had some challenges here because the reverb in Kraftwerk is about 12 seconds. So we had a collaboration with Fraunhofer Institute to get an acoustic model of the whole space. So like an acoustic, like a 3D model that you saw in the beginning of my presentation, an acoustic model of the whole space, so we can better understand how the reverb works, and if we play a sound in the very back only from that speaker, how long does it take to arrive on the other side, and will it even work with the delays towards other sounds and so on. So we needed a super precise acoustic model of the Kraftwerk space to load it as a simulation into our studio setup to have the kind of same properties. Because in the studio, all the speakers are close to you, so of course you can hear any speaker at any time with super short delays or no delays. While when you're in the actual space, you have massive delays between the two ends of the space, which is 100 meters long. So we needed to simulate that, and for that we needed the acoustic model. Yeah, then we did projection tests. So are the lasers bright enough for what we wanted to do? How do we set cutoff points so we're not allowed to hit the audience, of course? And also did brightness measurements to determine what diffusion lenses we need to project down into the audience so it's not dangerous for your eyesight. So we did those tests on site, and then of course, yeah, setup. And then we do a lot of calibration because we use all those 50 lasers synchronized in one 3D, as if they are in one 3D environment. So we are not using a traditional laser control software like Beyond or something, but we control everything directly from Touch Designer with a 3D model. So we can move objects through the laser array, and then the lasers would automatically paint that object independently of us knowing what exactly each laser is doing. So we're working like in a very different way than a traditional laser software would do. And then, yeah, we get to my storyboard part. So this is the only time that I'm totally analog. I like it. I could also do it, of course, in a 3D environment or use a sketch software or something, but I kind of like that analog feel of the paper and sitting down at the table and kind of spinning the ideas in my mind. I have a very vivid imagination, so I don't need to visualize much. I can create big parts of the shows in my mind before I scribble them on paper, also being inspired by the music that I create in parallel. So I created the music already for different parts, and then I also create the visuals at the same time. So this time where I created visual and audio side myself, I could do that really in parallel and also in sync. So I had, when I create visuals, I had the audio already in mind, or the other side, the other way around. So I had parts where I simulate being in a forest, or there's a part, as a child, I went to church a lot, and I liked the building and the atmosphere and how the organ sounds and all these kind of properties of the church, and I tried to transform that into a kind of modern representation. So I had the church already in mind when I created the audio, and then later also the visual. Yeah, here is also important to say what I'm doing is teamwork. I have 65 people working at the moment with me full time. So this is enormous teamwork. I have software programmers, I have engineers, I have firmware guys, I have electronic engineers. So this is an enormous body of teamwork, and I'm the representative standing here in front of you, but it's a big team and a big team effort. And everybody in the team has to perform on a very high level to be able to pull these things off. Yeah, and then that's the final result. Was the exhibition. And I always do an exhibition which is kind of looping all the time. So it's a 45 minutes exhibition loop. You can come in and leave at any time whenever you want. And it has a kind of dramaturgy that builds up and slows down and rises up again. While at the live show that I'm also doing, I have a clear start point and an end point. So that allows me, of course, to work differently. So it's like one audiovisual machine that I play in two different ways. One is the exhibition and one is the live show. And in the live show, and that's the good thing about using real-time software, since the beginning, I always use real-time software for everything. We can influence all the parameters at any time live. So even if we pre-program shows for our clients, like the ABBA show, ABBA Voyage in London, if you have heard about it, or clubs or other things, we program linear because those shows are linear, but all the variables are always accessible at any time. So we can change everything live. And here you see my live setup. We had a lot of knobs and buttons and the usual thing, and I used and that also was a really nice possibility that's possible today. I had a transparent touchscreen that I was dreaming of since I was a kid, and I saw it in science fiction movies. This technology is now here, and I was able to control visual and also audio parameters with that tool. And for me, very important that the audience can see what I'm doing, because yes, I can do a live performance and everything is pre-recorded, like most of the DJ sets of today. But I wanted the audience to understand what I'm doing. So a transparent touchscreen is a really good tool because you can see what I do and what I not do. And that was very important for me to connect that way with the audience. So I don't know how the time is, but let me show quickly a video what that kind of looks like. Maybe this one. Yeah, so this is what I create, and I wanted to show just a quick things how I use AI already and what it can do. Some simple tests also that show where it is already for me as a creative person to create visual output. I use these really bad pictures of myself selected from over 20 years of my age. And interesting thing here, for example, there's not a single picture where I have the beard and the hat, but what AI creates out of this could be a picture of myself. And the first time I saw it, at first I thought I mixed them up because it's so real, like my style of today mixed from all the pictures from the past. So just to show this as a quick example on what level of creation, if you train it well, and this is an offline trained tool, if you train it well, that's supposed to be me at 100. I think it's more 60 maybe, but it's also pretty good. Some younger versions of myself, even with the light installation in the back. So this is all AI created, just to give a little glimpse for those who haven't tried too much of those tools, how good they are already today, which means they will be immaculate in 2 years from now, and of course all be in full motion as a video from all sides and so on. I also did a little thing already with my art. So in the future, probably artists that have a good portfolio of art, be it in music or in visual already, they just load all that stuff and let AI create the next 20 versions. So even bands like, I don't know, Metallica, who ran out of ideas themselves, they might be revived by AI, which come up with really good variations of what they have done in the past. So this is my installation this summer in Berlin called Flow. Was an outdoor installation that I did, partly kinetic. So these are the original pictures. So this is not AI, right? And then I just loaded a bunch of them, like 30 or so, and then AI created that. Looks pretty much the same or similar, but it's a picture that didn't exist. Or this one pretty good. I mean, the scale is a bit off and so on, so it's not perfect yet, but this was just a 10-minute test. And then it came up with these things. So these are already when I said sound. Ooh, my sound is off. Yeah. When I said to do variations and come up with new stuff, I have no clue what that thing here is in the middle. No idea. It looks like a moose or something. I don't know. But yeah, these are just very quick tests. Not super convincing yet, but yeah, it's getting there. Then it got really wild, like this stuff. Or this monster, I don't know where that came from. Or yeah, in nature, then I said, very nice, I don't know where the angel came from. So yeah, just to show you quickly, this will be, or that is already, and that's my kind of conclusion, most of the stage designs for the big raves, or even the visuals, all these kind of things, they are already created in AI. This is not like something that will happen. It's already happening on a massive scale. I'm using it to create my next shows, to get inspirations. Sometimes I see, like there was a big trend now currently to use a lot of light elements and hang them with all the cables visible. That was an AI trend 2 years ago, and now people build it. So this stuff is happening on the creation side on a massive scale. I think it's great because it will immediately lift everybody up to a complete new level. Okay, I needed 20 years to get there. Now everybody can be there, but there's new chances to kind of move on from there and create on a totally new, unimaginable way. And of course, there's some stuff coming up like AI light show creators. It's funny still. Like I said, my example in the beginning with the robots, now we're still laughing about it, but in 2 years, this will be a reality, and light shows will be created by AI and assisted by AI, and this is a tool that you can already buy in a box. it's still very simple and unrefined. The same for music. I used here some of those tools you can use online. This one is fantastic. I mean, all the hip hop stars and everybody, you can easily recreate them, do your own text in ChatGPT, load it here, and it's almost indistinguishable from the original. It's not very good in original creations already. I used a couple of the creations, more ambient kind of stuff in my show Vector already, and I will probably create my next show, the whole music, just in this tool or in 2 or 3 others. It's very convincing. You have to know how to tweak it and so on, but the results are fantastic. And yeah, I mean, this is happening, and that stuff is pretty good. And the next thing is AI everything, of course, as Marcel also mentioned. That's it from my side. Thank you very much. If you want to find me, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please come to the center of the stage, Christopher, the light and media artist. And he is definitely here for more, because we are going to have another panel and we are preparing the stage. Is there any question in the meantime for Christopher? Can I come to the audience referring questions to the keynote between creativity and technology that we just listened to? So can I see any hands in case there are questions? Otherwise, I get to talk to Christopher over here. Well, that was like impressive when you showed the showcase, you being in front or in the middle of the audience. So that was you actually being at the buttons, right?
Yeah, but you also saw there's a lot of guys around me that do also a lot of things. So again, there's my programmers that help with the visual side and the laser control. There's the audio mix board and so on. But I have kind of master controls. I can overrule a couple of things. I can have general effects. I have a little bit of a modular setup also there for the audio. So I do as much as I can. And of course, I'm a bit overwhelmed, like most of the people performing live. Too many tools, too much things. And but it was a very good experience. Yeah.
So how much of the emotions of the people in the venue do you actually realize, or are you too much into controlling?
Yeah, I'm too much and only into controlling. There's nothing much around me. I'm into the controls and looking at the visuals and listening to the sound, and the rest disappears. Yeah.
And what I just realized, I mean, you actually also work with people. You kind of underline emotions. How much, or how important is it for you to have like a really good connection to the performing artists that kind of, get your technology within their performance?
I mean, it works on different levels. I mean, we just been 3 days ago at Schlagerboom. We had the kinetic LED panels there. And we are not involved much in that kind of the creation. We deliver the technology, we're there with the software. There's a director who gives the input, what they want to do. There's a video crew who does the video content. So it's more like a service. And I'm also really happy to do that. And then there's the other side, like when I was touring with Bon Iver from the US, we were on the world tour, and there was total carte blanche for me and the lighting designer. So he has his main lighting designer, Michael Brown, and I was doing the kinetic design, and he gave us complete freedom because he said, well, I am the expert for the music. You guys are the expert for the kinetic and the light, so I will not tell you what to do. Yeah. And that was amazing, and we did.
Let's go to the middle of the stage. You can really go into the middle, actually. And then we switch to the next part of the program.